Some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from people who know your dreams so well, they know exactly where to cut them. And honestly, stories like this are probably why some people struggle to trust deeply again. So before we start, tell me in the comments, have you ever had a friendship that secretly felt like competition? And if you enjoy quiet revenge stories about betrayal, healing, self-worth, and silent payback, subscribe to Quiet Revenge Stories. She used to tell people we were basically sisters, and for a long time, I believed her. We met during our first week of university. I was 19, sitting outside a lecture hall, pretending to scroll through my phone so nobody would realize I didn't know anyone yet. Then this girl sat beside me holding an iced coffee and said, "Are you actually busy? Or are you also pretending to look occupied?" I laughed immediately. That was Ava's gift. She made people feel instantly comfortable around her. Within weeks, we were inseparable. Study sessions, coffee runs, grocery trips, late-night conversations about the future. We even had matching Pinterest boards for apartments we swore we'd live in one day after graduation. At the time, it felt genuine, like the kind of friendship people spend their whole lives looking for. And honestly, maybe part of it was genuine. That's what makes stories like this complicated. Because sometimes the people who hurt you did love you in some way, just not enough to stop competing with you. At least, that's what I think now. Back then, I admired Ava completely. She was charismatic in a way I could never be. Professors remembered her name after one conversation. Cashiers flirted with her. Random strangers opened up to her within minutes. Meanwhile, I was quieter, more awkward, the kind of person who rehearsed phone calls before making them. Ava used to joke that we balanced each other out. She called herself the chaos, and me, the stable one. And for years, that dynamic worked, at least on the surface. The first strange moment happened during our second year of university. I got selected for a national student marketing competition. It was a huge deal to me. The winners got internships with real agencies, mentorships, networking opportunities, everything. I remember running to tell Ava because I was so excited. She hugged me instantly. But later that night, while we were eating fries outside campus, she casually said, "You know most people who win those competitions already have connections, right?" I remember my excitement shrinking immediately. Just a little. Not enough to fully notice, but enough. I laughed awkwardly and said, "Well, maybe I'll get lucky." And she shrugged. "I'm just trying to protect your expectations." That became one of her favorite phrases over the years. Protect your expectations. And somehow, every time something good happened to me, she found a way to gently lower my excitement. Not enough to sound cruel. Just enough to plant doubt. If I talked about a guy I liked, he seems emotionally unavailable. If I got excited about an internship, they probably already picked someone internally. If I felt proud of something, just don't come off too confident. None of it sounded hateful individually. That's why it took me so long to see the pattern. Sometimes manipulation doesn't arrive as destruction. Sometimes it arrives as concern. Tiny reductions of your confidence over years. Tiny reminders not to dream too loudly. And when it comes from someone you trust, you stop noticing the weight. By graduation, we had our futures planned together. We talked constantly about moving to the same city, working in marketing, traveling together once we finally made enough money. We genuinely believed we'd build our adult lives side by side. But after university ended, reality hit us differently. I found freelance work pretty quickly. Nothing glamorous. Mostly social media management for tiny businesses. But I became obsessed with improving. Not because I was naturally ambitious. Honestly, I was terrified. Terrified of failing publicly. terrified of becoming one of those people who peaked in university and spent the next 10 years talking about what could have been. So while everybody else went out partying, I spent nights teaching myself branding strategy, analytics, campaign psychology, everything I could find online. Slowly, opportunities started growing. Small clients became bigger clients became agency interviews. Meanwhile, Ava struggled more. Every workplace became toxic. Every boss was jealous. Every opportunity somehow collapsed before it fully worked out. At first, I defended her endlessly, but eventually, I noticed something. Ava loved the aesthetic of success, the conversations about it, the fantasy of it. But consistency frustrated her. Discipline bored her. Meanwhile, I was becoming more focused every year. Then one afternoon, while working at my tiny kitchen table, I got an email from Halcyon Creative, my dream agency, the kind of company I used to stalk online at 2 a.m. during university. Beautiful campaigns, huge clients, elegant downtown office. My hands were literally shaking while reading the email. They wanted to interview me. I called Ava immediately. She screamed louder than I did. "Oh my God!" she kept yelling. "This is your thing." And for the next week, she became deeply involved in helping me prepare. Almost too involved. She helped rehearse interview questions, edited my portfolio presentation, helped choose my outfit, stayed on FaceTime while I practiced answers. At the time, I thought, this is what real friendship looks like. Now, I think she wanted access to every detail. The night before the interview, we stayed on FaceTime until almost 2 a.m. I remember telling her, "I'm scared I'm going to embarrass myself." And she smiled softly and said, "You won't. You're the hardest worker I know." It's strange how certain sentences become haunted later. The interview day felt surreal. I arrived 30 minutes early because I was terrified of being late. The office was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, soft jazz playing in the lobby, employees walking around looking like actual adults with actual lives. I remember sitting there thinking, I can't believe I might become one of them. And somehow, the interview went perfectly. Better than I ever imagined. The recruiter, Nina, loved my portfolio. At one point, she literally stopped flipping through my presentation and said, "You'd be surprised how rare it is to meet someone who understands emotional branding this early in their career." I almost cried right there. When I left the building, I sat in my car shaking because for the first time in years, I genuinely believed my life was about to change. I called Ava immediately. "She loved my portfolio," I said. Ava gasped dramatically. "I told you." For the next 2 days, I floated through life. Every notification made my heart race. Every email felt important. Then the rejection email arrived. Cold. Generic. "We've decided to move forward with another candidate." That was it. I remember staring at my laptop completely numb, because it didn't make sense. The interview felt too good for that response. I kept replaying every answer in my head, trying to figure out what I did wrong. That night, Ava came over with takeout and cheap wine. She hugged me while I cried quietly into my couch pillow. Then she said, "They probably already had an internal candidate." And honestly, at the time, it comforted me. Now I realize how quickly she said it, like she'd already rehearsed the explanation. Months passed after that. I became quieter, not dramatically depressed, just smaller somehow. I stopped talking about big dreams openly, stopped telling people when opportunities excited me. I buried myself in work instead, and eventually, life kept moving. Then 6 months later, I attended a networking event downtown. I almost didn't go because I was exhausted. But one of my clients insisted. That's where I met Daniel. He worked at Halcyon. At first, I considered avoiding him completely because I still felt embarrassed about the rejection, but he recognized my name from my portfolio. Then, during our conversation, he suddenly frowned slightly and said, "Wait, weren't you the candidate with the professionalism concerns?" My entire body went cold. I asked him what he meant. Immediately, his expression changed, like he realized he shouldn't have said it. But it was too late. Apparently, after my interview, HR received an anonymous email warning them about me. The sender claimed they had worked with me before, said I was emotionally unstable, manipulative, dishonest about project contributions, difficult under pressure, and the email included personal examples, specific examples, examples only one person knew. My stomach dropped before he even finished speaking, because deep down, I already knew. Nobody else had those stories. Nobody else knew those details. Ava did. Only Ava. And honestly, I think the hardest part about betrayal like this is realizing the person was studying your insecurities while pretending to protect them. I drove home in complete silence. I didn't cry immediately. That was the strange part. I just sat on the edge of my bed replaying years of memories differently, like puzzle pieces rearranging themselves, every backhanded compliment, every moment she subtly dimmed my excitement, every weird coincidence where opportunities collapsed after I shared them too early. Suddenly, everything looked different. And that realization hurt more than the lost job, because jobs can be replaced. But once trust breaks like that, something inside you changes permanently. People expect revenge to be loud. Mine wasn't. I just slowly disappeared, stopped volunteering information about my life, stopped answering instantly, stopped giving someone access to me when they secretly enjoyed watching me fail. And the weird thing? She noticed immediately. People like Ava always notice when access changes. Suddenly, she started texting more, calling more, showing up unexpectedly. One night, she even asked, "Are you mad at me or something?" And I remember looking at her across the table, realizing something terrifying. If I confronted her, she would deny everything beautifully. And somehow, I would leave feeling guilty. So instead, I just smiled softly and said, "No, I've just been busy." That answer bothered her more than anger ever would have. Over the next year, my life improved dramatically, not magically, quietly, slowly. I became more confident because my confidence stopped depending on people who secretly benefited from my self-doubt. I got healthier, started dressing differently, spoke more confidently in meetings. Eventually, I landed a role at another agency. Ironically, it paid better than Halcyon ever would have. And on my first day there, I realized something important. Losing the dream job stopped being the tragedy. Keeping Ava in my life would have been worse. Then one evening, almost a year later, she texted me unexpectedly. "Can I ask you something?" Immediately, I knew. Her current workplace was destroying her mental health. She needed a new opportunity. Then finally, "Your company is hiring, right?" A few seconds later, "Would you feel comfortable referring me?" I stared at the screen for a very long time, and honestly, part of me still felt sad, more than angry. Because people don't talk enough about grieving friendships. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't losing the person, it's losing the version of them you thought existed. Then I remembered crying on my couch after that rejection email while she comforted me with the same mouth that ruined the opportunity in the first place. And suddenly, the sadness disappeared. The next morning, HR emailed me asking whether I planned to submit the referral. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. And for the first time in years, I chose myself without guilt. I replied, "I don't recommend her professionally." That was it. No screaming, no exposure, no revenge speech. Just the truth. Weeks later, Ava texted me again. "I never heard back from your company." I looked at the message silently. Then another message appeared. "I guess you forgot about me." No, I remembered everything. And honestly, that was the real revenge. Not ruining her life, not humiliating her publicly, just finally refusing to protect someone who never protected me. If you made it this far, comment quiet revenge, so I know you stayed until the end. And tell me honestly, do you think Ava was jealous from the beginning? Or do you think the jealousy slowly grew over time? And if you enjoy stories about betrayal, healing, self-worth, fake friendships, and silent payback, subscribe to Quiet Revenge Stories. Because some revenge stories aren't about destruction. Sometimes they're just about finally walking away quietly.